So this is a different from what I usually do, but since Stormgate is going to be coming out soon, and the RTS game genre is a subject I'm very passionate about, I wanted to talk about it. I saw this video the other day by eSports Storyteller. The video I was watching is called What Might Have Caused the Decline of SC2 Numbers. It's a fairly recent video, only about a month old, but as I was watching, my blood began to boil. Something in me was just fed up, and it took me a second to realize why. If you notice, the majority of this video is all about the esports scene in Starcraft 2, with large chunks of history dedicated to short histories of different aspects of it, particularly balance and monetization. This is where I had my epiphany. I think the RTS genre is actually a victim of survivorship bias. Follow my reasoning with this. I'm going to be talking a lot about Starcraft because that's what the video I'm responding to was originally about, and Starcraft is the franchise I'm most familiar with. Anyway, if you look up Starcraft right now, all you're going to see are people that are known for their skill. Loco was a big chunk of my childhood. I love Hearthstone and his dry Dutch wittiness, and Artosis and his wrath, and Giant Grunt games and his skill at completing the dumbest challenges possible. And if you speak Korean, somewhat proficiently, like I do, and watch Korean Starcraft, it's all pro replays from the latest of Freaka Star League, or I guess Mr. Inpishin, who is basically just plays fastest maps all day in Brood War. Do you notice a perhaps alarming pattern? If not, let me show you something really fast. So this is SCM Draft 2. It is the unofficial custom map editor for StarCraft Brood War. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. Now, certainly you must be starting to see what I'm getting at. Where's everybody else? Where's everybody below them? Everybody I've talked about here is extremely talented at their game. But what about the people below that? Where are the meek and lowly? Where are they whose fingers are not as confident or as quick as those above them? How is it that we basically have the power of a god at our fingertips, and yet we do nothing with it? Well, you see, in truth, it used to exist. Indeed, there was a time when RTS was more than just an exhibition of intellectual and mechanical prowess. There was a time when people had fun with the game without playing it or having to watch someone else play it. Come, let me show you what used to be. In the 2010s, perhaps you remember, there was a time when fan songs were very popular. Everybody probably remembers all of the old parody songs for Minecraft, but there was quite a few songs for Starcraft as well. The Pylons remix is a notable one. And this Void Race parody of Rebecca Black's Friday was definitely one of my favorites as a tween. Coming back to this now after 10 years, I've come to realize this is so dumb. And I see now why this died out. But you must appreciate how significant it was at its time. Animations were also somewhat popular back then too, perhaps the most notable one being Starcrafts, which is a cultural icon in the Starcraft community. That probably goes without saying for those who already know, but I'm hoping to shed new light on it to appreciate just how significant it truly was. For those who don't know, Starcrafts was a series of cutesy, comedic animated shorts that depicted the lives and experiences of the units of the three races in the game in the context of what appears to be a very long and drawn-out multiplayer match. The first episode was released way back in September 2013 and had a long run of 6 years, ending December of 2019. I definitely recommend checking it out, or rewatching it if you've forgotten about it. And I can think of no finer testament to the love of the game, as opposed to the love of competition and skill, which seems to be what the RTS genre has largely fallen to over time. It was so significant that an arcade game in StarCraft 2 and a $10 reskin of StarCraft Remastered was made based on it. Husky Starcraft also made a short animated series that I was also fond of, but that was only a drop in the bucket compared to how significant he was. Husky Starcraft was a replay caster like Hearthstone and Loco, but what set him apart was the broadness of his work. He didn't only cast pro replays, he also did a lot of Bronze League Heroes, a series all about the, quote, very best of the very worst, as he would say. This is largely unprecedented today. You don't see a whole lot of celebration for the lowest common denominator, unless it's in the context of a Grandmaster swatting down a bunch of them like flies, like this video I was recommended here. However, if Bronze League Heroes is unprecedented today, casting games of a modified version of the game is simply inconceivable. But he did it. One of my favorite series that he did was a similarly named Imba League Heroes. It was an arcade game, can you believe that? That was more or less a regular StarCraft 2 experience, but with a twist. some aspect of the game would be changed drastically to make the game imbalanced, hence IMBA League. This is why I brought up the SCM Draft Map Maker earlier, because IMBA League is one of the few examples of the StarCraft II map editor, and thus the arcade mode, seeing any meaningful use outside of the creation of standard ladder maps, and my frustration that with nearly limitless power, nobody does anything with it. But I digress. If there's anyone who loved the game, it was him, and he loved everything about it. And he loved the game so much that he even risked damaging himself. If you watch a lot of his older videos, he comments a lot that he visited doctors and drinks special teas because casting replays was just so hard on his voice. Now, those are some of the more brilliant examples of what RTS, or really StarCraft, used to be like back then. And now this begs the obvious question. How did we end up where we are now? I don't really have a good answer for that. Instead, I think a better question to ask is how do we get new people to come play? And stay playing at that. Let's look at StarCraft 1 and 2. I think we can actually find the answer in these two games by comparing the new player experience between them. Let's look at StarCraft 2 first. Because if you look at it, the new player experience for StarCraft 2 is actually abysmal. Okay, after looking at it again, I guess it's not that bad. They've improved it a lot over the years. But there's a lot of things that could be so much better. Right off the bat, I'm not a fan of this menu scheme in StarCraft 2. It's too streamlined, and these backgrounds are just so uninteresting. Think like a person who's never touched an RTS before. This whole thing is just going to come off as being very cold and uninviting. Older RTSs really had the whole menu thing down. I'd say Dawn of War Soulstorm had the best presentation, hands down. You boot it up, and you're greeted with this awesome cutscene of some Imperial Guardsmen fighting the Tau, and it looks like they're losing. But then the Sisters of Battle show up, and it's just magnificent. Then once that's done, you're greeted by one of the sisters, or whatever race you played last, striking up poses, and the environment behind them actually moves. It's not just a stupid picture, like it is in StarCraft 2. And the music, man, the music's probably my favorite part. This is how you get someone excited to play a game. Brood War also does a pretty good job. The intro cutscene for Brood War is probably one of the best cinematics in all of gaming, and it tells you so much about the world you'll be playing in. The main menu isn't as exciting as Dawn of War's, and I'd say the new menu for StarCraft Remastered isn't as good as the original, but it's still very intriguing, and it sets the tone pretty well. The campaign tab is alright. I was going to complain that you don't really get access to the campaigns at all, but actually I was wrong. You see, when I was a kid, you could only play the first 4 missions of Wings of Liberty. But it seems that they changed that. You can now play the whole Wings of Liberty campaign for free. I don't like that you still have to pay $40 for the rest of the campaigns, though. I think that's kind of a scam, in my opinion. Heart of the Swarm is awful, the plot is stupid, and every level basically feels the same. And Legacy of the Void is mediocre, the plot is serviceable, and the missions are okay. And Nova Covered Ops is alright, but it's not very rememberable. But you know, this is just pretty much my opinion. Onto co-op, I was going to complain about this because back in my day, you couldn't try out any of the commanders. You had to pay the $5 upfront. But they changed that, so you can play each commander up to level 5, which I think is fair. Solid game mode, I'd love to see more of it. And I do believe this is something that should be coming to Stormgate. Now, the Versus tab, I think this could be so much better. One thing I do like is when they made it so that you could see a specific unit depending on the race that you choose. It's a nice touch. But what I don't like is how inflexible the menu is. It is designed to get you into the games very quick and has a strong focus on ranked 1v1. I mean, you specifically have a 1v1 and a tournaments tab, and tournaments, as far as I can tell, they're all 1v1. I suppose you could argue that it's meant to give you a sense of progression, with training at the start, going on to AI, and then teams, and then 1v1, and then finally tournaments, but I don't know. It's never felt that way to me. If anything, team games in StarCraft 2 have always felt more like an afterthought. 1v1 has always really been the definitive game mode for StarCraft 2. I think what they should have done is have the custom tab be the main multiplayer section, because custom sort of implies that it's not the real game, if you know what I mean. And when you're dealing with little baby players that have never touched an RTS before, you don't want to have them stick their little fingers in the electrical socket that is StarCraft 2 ranked. At least, not until they're ready. Now, I've spoken a bit on the custom games tab already, but this is something I think really needs to be fixed. The most glaring problem is that the custom games list, it just doesn't work. I've played this game for like 10 years with several different computers, and the list has never worked for me. It just sits here, loading forever. So this whole section of the game just doesn't work. Maybe this is why nobody makes custom maps in StarCraft 2. It's because the place to play them has been busted forever. It's insane. And I'd say this is evidence of StarCraft 2's uninviting nature, right? The fact it has been so unreliable for so long implies that its usage is so limited that Blizzard sees no reason to fix it. It's been like this, collecting digital dust for years. I really hope that Stormgate does not make the same mistake that StarCraft 2 does. So I come back here during editing. I just wanted to point out that, in fact, the custom games list does work. It decided to start working all of a sudden. I don't know what happened, so just disregard everything that I said over the last 2 minutes. I guess Schrodinger's wolf strikes again. I don't really have much to say about the collections tab. Skins are cool, and I do think that is pretty underutilized. But I think they said a big part of Stormgate's monetary model is going to be through skins, so that will have to be seen. I do like that replays are a separate category. They are very important, and having a separate tab indicates to new players that it is very important. I hope that Stormgate has a good replay system, and I think it would be really good if they made it that you can share replays with your friends inside the game. The last bit I wanted to talk about is probably the social features of the game. The game has always had chats and clan features, but look at this. These are some of the big default ones, right? There's literally nobody here. It's probably just the nature of StarCraft 2 being a very solitary game, but this is simply inconceivable, statistically speaking. And it's simply criminal just how unused it is. Now, Frost Giant says they're going to be focusing more on team games and all that, so I'm not too concerned. But wouldn't it be amazing if they had tournaments or some kind of event or events where you could play together as a clan? There's so much potential to be had in that, and it could be great for new players. There could be prizes and stuff. Like, imagine a bunch of Gen Z kids, right? Instead of hopping on for quads on Fortnite or Warzone or whatever, they hop on for clan games on Stormgate. And if they win, they get a new skin or a UI overlay or something. It could be great for new players and for their retention. Retention being the thing that really matters in the success of the game. Now, I think that's the end of my criticism when it comes to the new player experience in StarCraft 2. It's not great, and there are many lessons that could be learned. Now, let's take a look at what I think would be a great example of a good new player experience. Brood War, to me, is that example. Starting off on a similar foot to StarCraft 2, the menus for Brood War are just so much better. Everything is nice and big, it's very easy to read, and there's a lot of flair to it. It really sells what the game is all about to you, from the first frame that you see it. In single player, you get to see the campaign stuff, which is cool, but the thing I really want to talk about here is the custom games menu. I don't think we appreciate enough the maps that StarCraft came with. There's easily 100 unique maps that it came with the game. Granted, they are rather crude and imbalanced compared to proper modern maps, but, that's okay. New players don't know about that. And they won't really care. There's just so much replayability with how many maps there are. You got tiny 2-player maps, all the way to massive 8-player maps, and there's even a whole folder full of maps that completely change up how the game is played. Like, you got one where you can play soccer, you got some, sort of tower defense games, I guess. It's not really tower defense, I don't know what it is, but regardless. Now, you can't really play those ones by yourself. The game doesn't let you play without a computer opponent, and computers, they can't play these custom, use map settings. You'll need to find friends for that, But, don't worry. Brood War is basically completely free. You get all the campaigns and all the maps it normally comes with, nearly everything for free. Really, the only thing you don't get is full screen, better graphics, and ranked play. But, the game is 26 years old, and it runs on basically anything, no problem. So it's a very low investment game. So if you don't like it, it's no big deal. You can get rid of it. But if you like it, the remaster is just $15, and that's really all you need for the complete Brood War experience. On the topic of friends, let's talk about multiplayer now. After creating a little profile, you'll be greeted by this screen. You'll notice right away that unlike Starcraft 2, where the social features are pretty much hidden away, and you can talk to all the other players online. Now, the other channels that are all pinned in the menu, they're all pretty dead too, but I think that's more due to age rather than negligence, as they have all been superseded elsewhere in their usefulness. You want strategies, you just go and look on YouTube. You want to talk to Blizzard, you go to the forums. There's quite a few active clan channels. I was part of one for a long time, but I left, and I can't seem to find the channel again. But you'll have to be told where to look, though, which is unfortunate. But overall, the social experience in Brood War is much better, even if it's just because 1 is greater than 0. I'm not really going to talk about the ranked play in Brood War, because it's so basic that it's not really worth talking about. What he's talking about, though, are the create and join buttons. Let's talk about the join button first. So you click on it, and it takes you to the custom games list. Not only does this thing actually work, unlike in StarCraft 2, but it's also pretty robust. It tells you the name of the game, what mode it is, what the map name is, and if you click on the game, you can get a preview of what the map looks like in a reasonable amount of time. This thing even tells you how good your connection is with that game. It's very impressive. I really hope Stormgate has something like this. Now for the create button. It's basically just like the custom game button in single player, but it comes with more options, including unique game modes that you can't find in single player. It's a real shame that we don't play these more often. I hope Stormgate comes with something like this too. It's a great thing for new players. It allows them to really play the game how they want to, and experiment with new things, keeping them interested in the game and coming back. Really, the one issue with Remastered is that they threw out the old map editor, like I said previously, so new players won't really know where or how or if they can make their own maps, but that's not a problem Stormgate should be having, hopefully. But the map makers are very intuitive and easy to use with a bit of practice. Let's hope Stormgate doesn't go overboard with the map maker complexity, like they did in StarCraft 2. I just don't understand the StarCraft 2 map editor at all. Anyway, I hope somebody from Frost Giant or any of the other half a dozen other studios that are currently making an RTS find something valuable in this video. If you did, a like is always appreciated. And I'd love to read your comments, so I can tell you how wrong you are, because I am an infallible human being, and all of my opinions are the correct ones. I'm just kidding, of course. But anyways, thanks for watching.